Hey, welcome in. Well, looks like Bill Maher did a transphobia. Uh-oh. That's right. Once more, Bill Maher is daring to ask questions of the woke orthodoxy. And that means the woke left is not going to be happy with Bill Maher because, as we know, asking questions, that's heresy. So here's the headline. All the babies are in the wrong bodies? Bill Maher questions trans explosion in epic rant. Let's see, real-time host Bill Maher unloaded on the strident pro-transgender movement in a Friday night rant that once again underscored the liberal personality's penchant for calling out the left's sacred cows. And I have to say, I find it bizarre and surreal that this is presented as being either pro or phobic. So you're either for it or you have an irrational fear. That doesn't actually reflect reality. I mean, what about people like myself who don't care what adults do, but also recognizes that a child cannot possibly give informed consent for something like puberty blockers and can't possibly understand the ramifications of this, has no idea how well they're going to grow into their body, and for God's sakes, their brains are not even fully mature until they're in their 20s. This should be obvious. And that's neither a pro-transgender or transphobic perspective. That's just called being rational. But anyway, Maher questioned why so many children seem to be getting encouraged to become trans, and said it should be okay to ask questions about the relatively new social phenomenon. Quote, "If something about the human race is changing at a previously unprecedented rate, we have to at least discuss it. Broken down over time, the LGBT population of America seems to be roughly doubling every generation." Citing a recent Gallup poll, Maher noted that less than 1% of Americans born before 1946 identified as LGBT. Now, according to the poll, 2.6% of baby boomers consider themselves LGBT. 4.2% of Gen Xers do, 10.5% of millennials do, and 20.8% of Gen Zers do. And then Maher said, quote, "which means that if we follow this trajectory, we will all be gay in 2054. When things change this much, this fast, people are allowed to ask, what's up with that? Are all the babies in the wrong bodies? And here's the thing about kids. They're impressionable, and they're also ignorant, because they just haven't been around that long. They haven't been around long enough to learn very much. And also, their brains are still developing. They're just not that smart. And that means if they see a way of getting attention, a way of standing out, a route to being special in some way, that makes them very vulnerable to people who want to push a certain ideology. And it is simply a fact that a child cannot have any concept of what any of this means or what the consequences of any of this are going to be. And there is absolutely nothing phobic about a statement like that. It's just reality. Anyway, it says LGBT activists and hard leftists consider any questions about transgenderism and children to be hateful, even when parents object to chemical and surgical castration of children. You know, you look at things like this and you go, how did it get here? How did we become this as a society? Talking about chemical and surgical castration of children. And for what? To prove a point? Anyway, Maher insisted that people have a right to wonder what's going on and should not be silenced by accusations from activists. He said, quote, "Someone needs to say it. Not everything's about you. And it's okay to ask questions about something that's very new and involves children. The answer can't always be that anyone from a marginalized community is automatically right, trump card, mic drop, end of discussion. Because we're literally experimenting on children." That's right, this is a giant social medical experiment being conducted on a generation of children. And the fallout of this in years to come is going to be damning as we see the lawsuits pile up of people with ruined lives saying, why did you let this happen to me? I was a child. Anyway, Maher noted that Sweden and Finland no longer allow puberty blockers to be administered to children and said common sense suggests there's going to be problems when doctors try to reverse the course of raging hormones. Yes, when doctors try to prevent children from growing into healthy adults. Anyway, Mark continues, if this spike in trans children is all natural, why is it regional? Either Ohio is shaming them or California is creating them. If we can't admit that in certain enclaves there was some level of trendiness to the idea of being anything other than straight, then this is not a serious science-based discussion. It's a blow being struck in the culture wars using children as cannon fodder. Now, of course, we know that, progressivism, wokeism, modern leftism, whatever we want to call it, is completely incoherent. Because on one hand, according to them, traditional gender roles are a lie. But on the other hand, if you have a little girl who displays any traditionally male preferences, she's automatically trans. So what it ends up looking like is not so much a concern for children as a concern for proving an ideological point, even when that point is totally incoherent. But in any case, just in case you thought that Bill Maher was actually becoming sane, he's also taking swipes at Elon Musk for saying he'd vote Republican. I've got to part company here. So Bill Maher will complain about woke lunacy, and yet he'll keep voting for it over and over and over again, which is why his state keeps getting worse and worse and worse. Anyway, that's all I got to say about that. Please subscribe, like, and share. That really helps me out. If you'd just like to listen, there's the audio-only version. It's on pretty much every platform. If you look for it, you will find it. Thank you very much. I'll see you next time.